instead of taking 20 minutes to introduce each of our representatives, our elected officials here today, everybody knows who these two folks are. They've been household names. The fact that we could get two members of the opposite sides of the aisle to come here, they're collegial. I've heard them up here. They haven't been arguing or fussing at each other. Nothing but love. And
we invite each other to events.
that's awesome. I would tell you, we joke about it, but it's hard to find. And we're the beneficiaries of that. Even though I'm sure there's things y'all will disagree on, you still come from a position of respect. And that represents all of us. And we're very thankful for that. And so what I thought we would do, Will, where'd you go? This is about getting ugly quick. Will usually keeps me under control, and he just went off the rails. What we've asked Senator Simon, Representative Tant, Richard to do is take a few minutes, talk about what's going on, the legislative wrap up, what you liked about what happened, what you didn't like, and then we can go. We figure we'll have some questions from the floor. And as always, we try to wrap up at 1 p.m. promptly, get everybody back to their day. So we will defer to Representative Tant. Richard first. Ladies go first. Please, you can do it from there. You can come up to the podium, whichever you prefer.
I'm going to just, for this part, I'll stand here and then let's Q&A. We'll sit back down. So first of all, it is a treat to be with all of you. And I love this community, and I love being with all of you today. It's a true gift. Senator Simon and I have a terrific working relationship, huge respect for my colleague. This delegation functioned extremely well all session. Tons of communication, working together on projects. Senator Simon carried the bulk of the appropriations projects for our area and his 13-county area. I split the Leon County projects with Representative Shove and Representative Franklin and myself, and so I think I got 12 or 14, I've lost count of the projects we got funded. He had a ton more, he had 75, which is incredible. We actually did carry a bill together. We carried a bill together which the governor has already signed, and it deals with children in our school system who stay in the school system until they're 22 because they have a disability, and allowing parents to stay involved with their loved ones' lives after they turn 18 and until they're 22. So that was a good one. I passed 4 other bills in addition to that this session, which the worst part is waiting for the veto period to pass, right? So, because we passed some really good bills. My favorite bill of the session was our workforce bill. So I was telling Senator Simon this, and he actually was the sponsor of it in the Senate. On the House side, I'm the ranking member of the Post-Sec Ed and Workforce Committee. I'm also the ranking member on the Commerce Committee in the House. So most of the business issues and the workforce issues come before those two committees, and I'm very excited to be able to have the positions that I have on those two committees that deal with so much of what's vital to our communities, which is making sure that people who should be working are working, and those who are working and have small and independent businesses have the support they need from our legislature. And of course, for those who aren't aware, I was very much a forceful advocate for the banking industry this session. Hope that doesn't offend anybody with our credit unions, but I'm there. Sorry about that. Love you guys, mean it, but there are some disparities. So one of the other things that we did this session was an incredible housing project. We don't have affordable housing. We don't have a place for people to live. Our workforce can't get started if we don't have health care. That's got to be part and parcel with education in our communities. We've got to have the business sector who moves here for housing and for our educational system, as well as a decent health care system. And so to that end, we strongly funded our hospitals this year in our budget, as well as our workforce and affordable housing. In Florida, the affordable housing budget will get us $3.2 million in Tallahassee alone for affordable housing, which is a big deal. In regards to our health care, our pediatric health rate enhancement for acute ill children for hospitals overall will get a $270 million increase across the board, and also preparing for the future and bringing more graduates and medical graduates into Florida and graduating them so that they stay in Florida, there's a lot more money there. In respect to the workforce bill, which is my favorite, so I was telling Corey this, workforce is a significant issue. As I told Corey and I were talking about our children while we were sitting here and how important workforce is for them. And it's very real. We have to have a path forward for every student. And what we did a couple of years ago was start with like putting together a pathway for them starting in middle school where we get them thinking about it. This year we built on that, and Corey's bill and the bill that I helped shepherd through the Education Committee did exactly that. It really brought together our employers, it brought together our education piece, our K-12, it brought together our career source piece, and it brings together the higher ed piece. And it requires all the spokes of those wheels throughout the state of Florida to work together on that. And so it's a really big deal for us because this is the model of our Tallahassee Chamber. How many people are here part of the Tallahassee Chamber, or a member of the Tallahassee Chamber? So they have a talent hub. You may be familiar with it. So what they did 3 years ago, was put together actually the imprimatur for what we took to the legislature this year, which became this model, which is bringing the employers into the situation to help drive the certification process. Just think about it. If you're creating jobs or certification for a job in a community where there's no workforce to work in, then you're having higher ed do things that are not serving the workforce. You're having your community colleges create certifications and the lively techs create certifications that there aren't employability options later. So that's the whole point of the talent hub for the chamber, as well as the imprimatur for this bill. It's going to create apprenticeships for employers to help kids along. It's going to require, which is ridiculous almost, that we have to have this in our high schools. It's going to require us to have career fairs and have employers telling folks about jobs that are available. So this is a big deal what we're going to do, and I'm going to let Corey talk a little more about it since it was his bill over on the Senate side. But it's very exciting to see that something that we kind of put the tools together for here in Tallahassee become a statewide model. And that is the wonder of the Tallahassee community in doing these things. And it really is, there's going to be a world of work in October where major employers are going to be working with families directly as well as students, and I'm going to encourage you to participate in that. So I think that I'm going to probably stop at this point. I could probably go on, and I don't want to bore you because we want to hear from our senator, but I'd be happy to take questions with Senator Simon afterwards. But in terms of the workforce and in terms of business, we've got your back. I'll just tell you that.
I guess since Allison stood up behind the podium, I guess I'll follow
I'm too
suit.
short.
Well, the good thing is that you talk so much about the workforce bill that I'm not going to really jump into it too much. That cut off about 15 minutes of this 45-minute presentation. I've got 45 points and 65 sub-points, and so we're going to be here long past 1 o'clock. Now, thank you all for having me. Thank you all for having us. As Allison mentioned, we do get along great together. I really have enjoyed working with her, along with our other delegates, and Representative Franklin, and of course my good friend Jason Show. It's been truly a blessing. I think when you follow the news and you follow the media and you see all of the bickering that takes place, it's great to be a part of a delegation. That's not what goes on with us. We work well together. We communicate with each other quite often. Yes, we disagree on certain things, and that's okay. I think what we realize and what we're looking for the country to realize is that you can disagree without being disagreeable. And that's important for us to be able to get done what we need to get done and to provide a landscape for the good folks of Florida to be able to thrive. And so excited to be in this position, to be able to represent you all well, and the rest of my other 12 counties because it's truly been a humbling experience, a learning experience. I've been drinking through a fire hose every single day for the last year. Just dawned on me the other day, it'll be June in a couple weeks, and more well, this week, sorry. It'll be June, and I think I got into the race in June of last year, and so it's been a year that I've been at this, and I can say that I've learned a lot. I can appreciate the process, and looking forward to moving forward. I do have a few prepared remarks, because if I don't, then we're going to be here all day. So this session was a success in many areas. Let's start with the general budget. Our 2023-24 balanced budget makes vital investments in affordable housing, as Allison talked about, hurricane recovery, education, environmental infrastructure, and so many other key components of our state. In line with our principles, this budget sets aside historic state reserves, ensuring that Florida is prepared to address any future challenges and allowing Florida to offer a landmark tax relief to its constituents. The total budget this year was $117 billion across multiple categories, including $10.9 billion to bolster our reserves and $2.7 billion, historic $2.7 billion in tax relief to you all, to the folks in the state. This budget appropriates an historic as Allison talked about, an historic $711 million to workforce housing. That's huge. That's a tremendous investment that allows for families to live in the communities that they serve. And that's important. That was important to the legislature, and we were so happy to get that bill across the floor, and that was Senate Bill 102. The budget includes $3.7 billion in hurricane recovery to ensure that communities across the state can rebuild from Hurricanes Ian and Nicole that devastated Florida last year. But it also provides an additional $1.4 billion for emergency preparedness and response funds to ensure that we can respond to the future natural disasters and other emergencies that happen in this state. The budget invests $26.7 billion in K-12 education. It funds school choice, expansion of our school choice program, which I ran, increases our FDFP funding, and improves school safety. This funding will increase the base per student allocation by 12%. It ensures that education funding in Florida follows the student and expands the opportunities of all of our students in our great state. Continuing in our community, excuse me, this budget also continues the attraction to make Florida an attractive place for all of our teachers. This budget provides an additional $252 million to increase teacher pay. That $252 million is to help the compression issue that was created by increasing our last starter teacher pay in the last session. So we're excited about that additional funds to make sure that we're able to attract the best and brightest teachers from around the country to come to the state and teach our young people. This budget also allocates $675 million in funding to fund workforce development, to teacher apprenticeship programs, as Allison talked about, our career and technical education programs. It empowers students to attain high-paying careers immediately after high school graduation. One of the things that I want to touch on, and what I want you all to look at, we talked about this a couple of years ago. I was at a chamber meeting down in Orlando. Is small businesses, business community in general, figuring out as a college education what you're looking for. Is that what you need? And so our students need to understand that. They need to know, is that what businesses are looking for? Or can I go out there and get the credentials necessary to go and be effective at whatever job I pursue? This budget emphasizes explicitly protecting children and families across the state, investing $4.7 billion for programs focusing on enhancing our foster care system, improving our adoption process, and fighting the opioid epidemic. This budget also provides a much-needed support for rural communities across the state, many of them who I represent, with $25 million appropriated to our rural infrastructure fund and $112 million directed to our broadband equity access and development fund, which makes it clear that we value our rural communities and are dedicated to their success. In Florida, we back the blue in this budget. This budget echoes the sentiment through key investments in our law enforcement, such as a $20 million dedicated to law enforcement recruitment bonuses, to the $20 million in law enforcement recruitment bonus program that we have, and $5.7 million for law enforcement salary increases in our fiscally constrained counties. So we're excited about that. This year's budget also increased needs, critical needs in communities across the state, enhancing the state's thriving economy and providing Floridians with the urgent tax relief that so many of us are feeling because of the inflation of our federal government. So we're excited about those things. I'll touch on a couple of those tax breaks that you all will be able to take advantage of right now, today. The tax relief package includes a permanent exemption on baby and toddler necessities such as strollers, cribs, diapers, and baby wipes. The tax relief package also includes 2 back-to-school tax holidays lasting 14 days each, 2 disaster preparedness sales tax holidays lasting 14 days each, and a Freedom Summer sales tax holiday on recreational items and children's toys that will last from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So now is the time to go out there and provide the things that you need for your kids and make this a fun holiday. They've earned it, you all have earned it. And so putting those dollars back in the hands of the people that go out and make this state what it is was important to us in this budget. And so I briefly talked about some of the tax breaks, talked about some of the budget items, but I wanted to talk about a couple of the bills that I got a chance to run. I want to talk about one because Allison touched on Senate Bill 240, which was our workforce bill, but our educational choice bill. First and foremost, my main priority piece of legislation this cycle was HB1. This was a topic that I ran on, and I'm happy to say that we were able to get across the finish line, and the governor has in fact signed that piece of legislation, so we're excited about that. Before this bill was signed, Florida's approach to education created a system that limited students' choices to receive the full benefit of their education pathways. HB1 provided all Florida students access to a quality education, regardless of income, zip code, or circumstances. This legislation shifts focus from the system to the students and families, supporting the customized educational pathways specified to each student's unique needs. HB1 builds on that foundation, establishing prior legislative sessions to expand access to family empowerment scholarships to provide all Florida students with an opportunity to attend public school, private school, charter school, or homeschool students. Another important aspect of the bill, which I'm excited about in the work that we'll get a chance to do this summer, is it removes unnecessary statutes from our K-20 education code. It requires the State Board of Education to seek stakeholder input and provide recommendations for reducing unnecessary state statutes and regulations that we put on our education system. It also removes unnecessary barriers to teacher certifications and preserves schools' districts' flexibility for our students. Those are just a few of the areas that we'll dig into this summer and leading up to next session with input from our stakeholders, including our teachers, our school districts, and our school superintendents. We will free up teachers to be able to just teach the core curriculum here in the great state of Florida. And so we're excited. I'll talk a little bit about some of the projects that we were able to fund this cycle. North Florida was able to bring home about $40 million to Leon County in projects and over $100 million in District 3 of the 13 counties that have. Some of those are about $10 million to Appalachia Center. Those $10 million will go to expanding their step-down beds and the money to operate with their existing staffing. Some of the funds secured will also go to expansion of Appalachia Center's Children's Baker Act program, which is needed today more than ever with the huge increase we've seen in our young people. And so we're excited about that. We funded our colleges and universities, so we're excited about that. We have the #1 county in terms of our university system, our college system, with TCC, FAMU, and Florida State. Done an amazing job, and we continue to fund those schools at a high level. We've made vital improvements to our drainage and infrastructure projects, including a Bond Road, money for our South Side Transit. We were also able to help with our homeless population. I know many of you have seen our homeless population and how bad it's gotten here in Leon County. And a large part of that is because the surrounding counties don't have the resources, so they send most of their folks to Leon. And so we've provided funding to handle that crisis that we're finding ourselves in here in Leon County. So I'm gonna sit down because I think I've talked enough. But as you can see, I think we've spent our money wisely. We've been very conservative in how we've spent our money. We set aside money for the future. And more importantly, we brought resources home to a district that has been starved for a long time. And so we're excited about it. I'm excited about it. We're looking forward to doing more of this work over the next legislative cycle.
I forgot to mention this. Bring this way down here. I forgot to mention this. No, for anybody here with a state employee or a former state employee or a retiree, yes. So this year, I forgot to mention this, and I wrote it up in the note. So this year's budget, thankfully, as we're talking about the budget, gave a 5% increase to state employees this year. And on top of the budget increase, of the pay increase from last year, drop was changed. That we currently, teachers and law enforcement officers are limited to 8 years, but everybody else could do 5. Now everybody's at 8. The drop interest rate was bumped up to 4%. So that is a big jump from 1.3%. So that's a nice increase for our retirees. And also, we removed restricted barriers to get into drop. So long as you've done your employment, you've reached your full retirement, there's no age barrier now. So what this translates to is more money in our community to spend from our retirees. And so I think that's important and something that we haven't done in a long time. Further, for state employees in the investment plan, the state contribution will increase by 2, and that is also another increase. So we did some good work for our state employees as well, which make up a big bulk of our community. I wanted to add that before I forgot.
All right, thank you both for your summaries there. Both of you seem to be very passionate about the workforce and affordable housing and the education, but a lot of that, you can't have it without new industry, employers, employees. What's each of you kind of your passion, your mission about bringing new industry, new jobs to the region? Not just Leon County, of course, but the whole region itself. You go ahead.
Well, am I on here?
Not
I think I'm on now. Yeah. So
Staying on.
yeah. I think a lot of that is based in our tax structure, right? It's making sure that we keep taxes low in the state of Florida. I think when you know, as it pertains to this part of the district, a lot of the projects that I was able to secure in our budget were all infrastructure needs. We've got to have the infrastructure. We've got to have that part of it settled so that we can bring businesses in. There's still huge swaths of our counties, my counties, that are still operating on septic. And so making sure that we're able to provide them those infrastructures, still businesses come in and have the framework to be able to come and get established and have success. And so those are the things that I really were primarily focused on when I started looking at the infrastructure projects that we were putting in place, is to ensure that there was an environment for businesses to come in, maintaining our low tax structure here in the state of Florida, but also making sure that when folks get here, they have a place to stay with our workforce housing initiatives.
Great.
Same.
There we
I
go.
think it's working now.
Yeah.
So, agree. So first of all, it's like a chicken or egg. If you don't have the affordability, if you don't have the education, if you don't have the health care to provide for somebody, an employer is not going to move here. So you got to have both, I think, in order to do so. And I think the workforce bill does do some more of that to help, and also the affordable housing bill does do that. The crime rate has gone down in our state. We are an incredibly attractive state. The other thing is to provide tax relief and tax protections for our small and independent businesses. One of the things that we in our delegation talk about when some of these big issues come up is that, you know, Leon County and North Florida, we are full of mom and pop and independent small businesses who are just looking to, you know, the folks who work there, who started those businesses, that's their dream, right? And so making sure that people have the support from the legislature that they need. A couple of years ago, there was a bill that required sales tax collection on online sales. And I supported that bill because I felt that it was important for our mom and pops that are in brick and mortar, and particularly those who had just come through COVID, right, to have that support. And I bucked my own delegation, my own caucus rather, to do that, not our delegation. In fact, our entire delegation, well, I think 3 out of the 4 of us voted in favor of it. So,
For my time.
at any rate, so this was something I felt very strongly about because, and we are going to continue to draw more business here, particularly with the transportation sector that we just did. I think there's going to be more coming here with you know, the innovation hub that we're doing and the magnet lab. I think there's a whole lot of opportunity coming, and it's a matter of making sure that we provide them as friendly a place to land as we can provide them here in North Florida.
Okay, great answer. I've got a few more, but we'll open it up to the floor for everybody. And you all please remember the rule. If you have a question, ask the question. We don't need a summary. We don't need your life story. And we all know that the weather was pretty this weekend.
Life stories,
Yeah. So please get direct to the questions, and that way we can cover as many as possible. Don't embarrass yourself.
You're in absolute pain, Will. You notice I'm real techie. This past session, where did Corey go? This past session, the business rent tax was reduced from 5.5 to 4.5, which is a big boost, and it comes into effect December 31st for 13 months. Don't know why about that, but anyway, my question is this. Will you, Corey, Simon, you, Representative Tant, support a bill to eliminate real estate taxes on commercial leases?
So I mentioned, when you and I you've talked about this with me a couple of times, so I did go back and recall, I was not incorrect in my recollection. When we passed the tax fairness bill, we also did in fact pass a 2% decrease in commercial rent costs. And it doesn't take effect though until we replenish the unemployment compensation fund, which it was, I mentioned when you were talking, is that during COVID, a lot of folks were getting higher and higher bills for unemployment compensation fund because of the number of people who left the workforce. Meanwhile, some of our smaller businesses had increases even though they didn't lay off because they were family owned, and so the family kept working through it, and so their prices went up. So I supported that bill for that reason as well, as it would help the small businesses not have to pay into that unemployment tax increase. And so we're about to finish that. They are projected to have that fund completely replenished by August 1 of 24, and at that point we're going to get a 2% cut in that tax. And so I think that that's going to happen and make this temporary tax break null when that takes place, which is why the 13-month is there. But in terms of the overall, I'm happy to look at it. I'm happy to sponsor a bill that will help our small businesses. I think, as mentioned to you this morning, it's a matter of what the fiscal impact of the state's going to be and how we're looking at the time when we offer it. So that's what I would say to you. So, but relief is on the way. There's always more to come.
Well, I will be honest with you. I'm not familiar with the subject matter to this extent. So I will say this: my wife and I, we got a small business. We have a non-emergency medical transportation company for years, and I understand the heavy lift, the burden that's placed on business owners small business owners, when we talk about less than 15, 20 employees, I understand that burden. And so any way that we can lessen the burden, I'm always open to taking a look at the policy. The devil's always in the details, making sure that we're fiscally responsible to the state, but absolutely looking out for our small business owners.
Okay.
You talk about affordable housing. Have you taken into consideration the inflation rate and the increased interest rates and how they're going to affect the whole construction industry? I see it really having a serious effect on the building.
No doubt.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's why I think that the steps that we've taken when we talk about workforce housing in conjunction with our business community is the way to go. Because you all are at the forefront of that every single day. You deal with it every single day, and so it's important that we have that public-private partnership so that moving forward, we're looking at those, the way the shift in the economy goes, and do it responsibly.
To that point, I will say that I'm building a planned community right now, affordable housing community for people with cognitive disabilities called Independence Landing. And the construction cost is out in Southwood, and it's going to be occupied come August. But I will tell you that it is an average between the cost of gasoline, between the cost of materials, between the cost of the supply chain issues and waiting those supply chain issues out. You're right, there is an impact to all of that. Fortunately, the affordable housing budget contemplates some of that in it, but it is a real factor with every business in the state of Florida right now.
Sure, go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out. This may be more of a Wakulla County question, but I don't know, Simon, Corey, if you can comment on it or not. We moved in there about 2 or 3 years ago, and obviously it's booming down there. Do you know if there's any plans to either add on to the high school down there, or build another high school or an annex or anything like that? I don't know what you might be able to say about that.
Yeah, I wish that I could break some news for you. I have not seen that. That doesn't mean that it's not something that's in the works. I just haven't seen anything.
So, question for you, Representative Tant, is moving forward, 2024, what is one goal or something that you want to put your thumb on, or that you've had in the pipeline that you're eager to get started on and start working with?
Well, I don't know. I've already got 2 bills in the hopper for next session to be able to pass. In the House, we're only allowed to carry 7 bills because there's so many of us. There's 120 of us. They don't want us having 18.
I wish I could carry just 7 something.
I know. So, yeah. Meanwhile, yeah, for sure. So this year I did a tax relief bill for Floridians, and I did some other stuff. So I like leaning into some of the business sector issues, and so I'm trying to. Yes, so I mean, obviously, any of the things you think we should talk about besides Ted's issue, or in addition to Ted's issue, I'd like to lean into, especially as ranking member of the Commerce Committee. I'm just getting my head around what I want my legislative agenda to be next year, and so I'm going to try to spread beyond what I've typically done, because I've done a lot of disability work, and I love it because I live it. I'm living with a 24-year-old with developmental disabilities, and so I've gone back and addressed some of the things. I do want to get my hands around the Agency for Persons with Disability a little bit better, but obviously want to work directly with the community and what this community needs.
Okay, that mic is giving you a lot of trouble. I'm very sorry. There you go. All right, improvise.
All right, I keep
Senator,
chasing it around.
being your first time up, other than learning your way around the place, what was your biggest accomplishment or achieved goal, so to speak, after your first term?
Really, it was really bringing home the much needed resources to this district. That was the big part. When I traveled around this district, it's so easy because I've spent the greater part of the last 25 years here in Leon County to get a very closed-minded view of what's going on around us. And getting outside of Leon County, you realize just how good you have it. here in this county.
We do.
Just how much the families struggle around the district. You know, I was over I took a trip over in Hamilton County several times during the course of the campaign. And when you ride down Main Street in Hamilton County and you see businesses boarded up, and,
Yes.
that's concerning for me. It is, how do we attract industry into these small counties? You know, I look at Jennings. That's when you're coming down 75 and you hit the Florida line there in Jennings, it's a ghost town. And so how do we incentivize businesses to come to areas like that and around this district to come and build businesses, provide jobs? And so that, for me, is the most important part of this, because if we can put the infrastructure, as I talked about before, if we can put the infrastructure in place, these places, especially with the emphasis that we put in broadband, people are moving to Florida about 900 a day. And many of the native Floridians that have grown up in this state are being priced out of the southern part of the state. And with broadband, that allows them to migrate up to the northern part of the state. But if we don't have the infrastructure in place to build businesses, then we're going to constantly, you know, I've got Liberty County, their ad valorem tax base is tax income is about $3.2 million. That's nothing. That's peanuts for the folks over in Bristol. And so they can't just live off grants. But you've got to have that infrastructure. They have these needs, these very real needs that we've got to, that I will continue to focus on, trying to turn District 3 into a bellwether part of this state, and folks want to come and live, and I think it's beautiful up here. That's why I've never gone back to South Florida. Grew up in Pompano Beach. I was just down there this past week, and every time I get on the I-95 expressway, I'm like, get me back to Tallahassee now. So this is a beautiful part of the state, and it's time that we make the investment so that industry understands that and moves their folks here.
If I could for a hot second, I'm a North Florida girl through and through, and I get to Ocala and I start getting the shakes. So, right. So having said that, though, I got gifted in redistricting Monticello and Madison, or Jefferson County and Madison County, Florida, and I see a lot of what you see. Jefferson County is it doesn't have a single stoplight. And so if you haven't been to Jefferson, it's a short drive away, and it's a completely different community than ours. And it's the diversity in North Florida. And I think you're right. We don't sometimes understand how good we've got it. You know, the way that it works is you fund your basic governments through your ad valorem taxes. And so when you have ag lands that are exempt, or agricultural lands that are exempt from paying those taxes, there's not enough money really to fund even basic governmental needs, which is why we have to run a scarcity bill every year, why we have to run the rural bill that you and Jason carried this year. It's a big deal. And so watching them go through what they do just to cover the budget that they go through is really quite humbling. And you've got people, county managers, doing 2 or 3 jobs. You've got firemen over there making $12 an hour. That's insane, and that's literally what it happens in our smaller communities. And so it's really a life lesson to be with them, and a gift as well.
All right, thank you. Question? Go ahead, sir.
Thanks for both of you for your commitment, the sacrifices that you do to serve. Help me a little bit, alleviate some of my concerns, I guess, relative, without going down the rabbit hole of the merits or lack thereof of select projects or tax breaks. I know that's all part of the game. As a conservative, though, for me, a near $30 billion increase in a state budget over the last 5 years is a little, particularly with this legislature that is overwhelmingly, I'll say, Republican. What would you say, just from a broad, again, I don't know if we want to go down the rabbit hole defending certain selective tax breaks and projects, but just from a broader picture, I mean, is it concerning to you, and what would you say to try to alleviate those concerns for residents?
Yeah, I definitely hear you in that. What I will tell you is 900 people a day are moving to the state of Florida. So with the added number of folks goes an added number of costs. And so that's where when you start to look at our budget and what we're focusing on, it's because of the increased population that we're seeing to the state. And because people are seeing the freedom that lives here in the state of Florida. And so we're having to account for those added dollars because of the added population.
Representative, anything on that?
Not much other than I can tell you that both Senator Simon and I are extremely conscientious about the dollars, and it is a lot. 30% increase over the last several years is a lot. I understand that. So is our population growth. We still have to cover the school students that are coming here. We still have to have law enforcement to protect our communities. We still have to have the roads and the infrastructure here to make sure that we can travel safely on our own roads. So it's a hard mix. The whole point is, in my view, is for us to continue to do what we do is just to make sure that the dollars are spent with integrity and set aside with integrity. And I take that very seriously. In my view, that is the most sacred duty that we have as a legislator, is to safeguard these public dollars and the public trust that goes along with it.
And returning those dollars back to you all. That's why
Right.
we have such a massive historic tax breaks in this budget, because it's about restoring those dollars back to the taxpayer.
All right.
Question for both of you on the affordable housing. I think the real estate market is the way it is right now. Is going to be that way for a while. With high interest rates, existing home sales, I think will continue. People won't move unless they have to. So that's going to reduce the inventory further. And great work with allocating funds. Can you talk a little bit more about how those funds will get used? What do you see happening there?
So in respect to the affordable housing dollars, this was the best year we've had in 30 years in allocating for affordable housing. It was really interesting to see folks talking about rental issues when you've got to build inventory for prices to drop on the affordable housing side and on the rental side. However, I know we've got a mix. We've got the pressure points to make money on the other side. What we have in the budget is $259 million for sale, which is the low interest rate loans for workforce housing, and $250 million for SHIP to provide affordable housing apartments for rental. There's no sweep at the trust fund, and that is to go to the workforce housing that we talked about. The affordable housing, every county has an affordable housing agency. Ours is run by Brenda Williams here in Tallahassee. She's remarkable. And then we have Florida Housing Finance Corporation, which oversees the affordable housing market, essentially, and plans for that. I think there's also built in to local communities is to create sections of housing in communities that can be allocated just for affordable housing, and that is all very prescripted by Florida Housing Finance Corporation. And so in terms of all of that, it's a big bailiwick of stuff to get your hands around to work with affordable housing. I've just come through it with Independence Landing, and it's a lot. It's a whole lot. And there's a lot of rules and a lot of very strict things you have to follow, and a lot of accountability. And frankly, if you're utilizing public money, it should be. So,
Anything you want to add?
No, I think that was a great job. One of the things I did want to also touch on with that increase is we are looking at inflation here from the federal government. And so that other increase in the budget cost for the state of Florida is also accompanied by an added cost of just doing business, buying anything in the state of Florida.
Okay. Yeah, anything else from the floor? We got time for at least one more. He beat you to it in the back. I'm sorry. Come on.
Well, I got the mic now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Senator Simon and Representative Tant, it's been a pleasure working with both of you and your staff. Thank you so much for all that you do. Can you talk about some of the property tax breaks that was offered this year, especially for our veterans?
Yes, I have a whole chart that I put on social media just this week. So there is a permanent tax rate for diapers, that Senator Simon mentioned. Also, oh, the property taxes. No, sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I've got the details of that, but I can get them for you. Mitchell, if you could make a note, that would be great. So, yeah, sorry. So, do you remember any of the
I
particulars?
don't, you know what, it's one of those things when you pass 300 and some odd bills during the course of the session, not all of them kind of sit right there at the forefront, but, Keen, I'll be happy to get you that information, and get that out, and that way you can all share with folks here. I know that's a big concern, but unfortunately I don't have it up there.
I do remember there were several veterans bills, and then also there was a permanent tax break for low income, like $20,000 a year, senior citizens, that they will be able to enjoy. But we didn't do too many of those, but most of them were vet, and then the one was a senior citizen one that I recall off the top of my head.
There's a dental benefit for our veterans as well, that we had in the bill. But fortunately, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We're all trying to forget all that stuff. As we get ready for committee meetings in September.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it my turn?
It's all about it.
All right, so we have, you said 900 people a day moving into Florida. What is the legislature doing about our water resources, because they are going to drain our aquifers, and have the natural resources and DEP entities begun working on how we protect our water resources with all these people moving into the state of Florida?
The answer is yes. We fund Florida Forever, and we have a lot of resources that are going into protecting our aquifer. I want more up in North Florida for our springs. A lot of it is in south with Lake Okeechobee. So I'm very protective of our Wakulla Springs up here. I know Corey is too, because that is the Wakulla Spring Basin is what everybody here eats, drinks, and cleans ourselves with, and so we have to protect that water supply. So I think there needs to be a greater focus on springs, and I think there was. This session last year it was largely Okeechobee, but I think that is something I really. So Dottie and I met when she was a staffer in the legislature, so it's good to see you again. So, but I get your concern, and it's a legitimate one.
I actually ran a bill this year on having Apalachicola Bay be an area of critical concern. So we were able to get that bill, which will provide $5 million a year for the next 5 years. Sorry, 5 years, to make sure that we're not contaminating our bays. You know, the aquaculture part, I sit on the Ag Committee, was a huge focus for us in making sure all of us in this room, or at least most of us in this room, love our Apalachicola Bay oysters. And it was important for me that we protect those areas and we protect that industry here in the state. And so it'll be a continued fight with our good folks over at FWC, because I know my oystermen out there are looking to get back to work. But we have to make sure that we're protecting our environment, our water sources. And so I was happy to run that bill and get it across the finish line.
And septic to sewer is a big priority for our legislatures, getting as many communities as we can out of septic and on sewer.
Great. I'm going to allow for each of you to have, 1-2 minutes of closing, and the question that I'd like to kind of be answered in that closing is, how can this business group here in the Tallahassee area help you all moving forward, and things that we can do to assist? And furthermore, we truly appreciate both of you coming today. Okay.
The most important thing for me is to hear from you. I can tell you, I started my tenure as a legislator during COVID, and I lived and died by the communication that I had from all of you, because the doors were closed at the Capitol. People couldn't go in. So emails and texts and phone calls to me are vital, and I try to answer as many as I can. We have some automatic responses but when it comes to issues that I need to act on, we do it, and I really live and die for that. I can't tell you how important that was for me in my first 2 years elected, and even this year, when people back in the Capitol, when people from all over the state are visiting you, you appreciate it. But when people come in who are from your community, it means business. I mean, I stop everything to listen and learn. And we can't do the job for you that you expect us to do if we don't know the issues. So the most important thing is to do things like this and also have small group gatherings. I'll go anywhere and listen to anything that I need to make sure I have better eyes and ears for you, because that's what I'm here for. I work for you. You're my boss. So, there you go.
Yeah, I think Allison hit the nail on the head. It's important that we hear from you. You all get first priority when you walk into my office. It doesn't matter who's there. If they're not local, if they're not the folks that we see in the grocery stores every single day, then they have to leave, because it's important that we hear from you. You ask questions, we've got, so many bills that go through our heads, so many issues that are pressing for our state. But if we don't hear from you all, we can't add to that list. And ultimately, my duty is to the folks of District 3. And so that's why it's so important that I hear from you all, first and foremost. You deal with these issues every single day. And if they're important to you, they're important to me.
Great. Well, thank you both for coming today. We enjoyed hearing from you. Thank your offices for being helpful and working with me on getting this on the calendar. And thank you both for what you do for our community. And please don't be a stranger. So thank you.